Anyone who drinks vodka like it's tea is a bad person. It wasn't long before John got the call. He's the ceiling of the police department's detection rate. The case must be left to him. But when John arrived at the scene, it was raining heavily and all the clues were washed away. The only eyewitness only saw the murderer's back. The case was at a standstill. In order to solve the case as soon as possible, the police station called in the senior inspector to help. But with almost all of their staff, they still couldn't find any useful clues. On the other hand, the reporter received a mysterious phone call. The caller told him he has information about the police shooting case. It's an absolute scoop. The reporter knows everything on the other end of the line. The murderer wants him to expose the case to provoke the police. The reporter realized that this was a good chance to become famous, and instead of telling the police, he started to report the story. Public opinion was completely ignited. Countless keyboard warriors began to put pressure on the police. But after days of investigation, there were still no clues. John was so burnt out that he had no choice but to use the killer's weapon. A policeman was killed in the street. The murderer was so crazy. The police have no clue. John had no choice but to investigate through unorthodox means. At a loss, John returned to the police station and opened the old files. But he found a terrible clue. The man was a fool, but he was a murderer. He's been in prison 8 times and he's very vindictive. When Jack got out, he kept on killing, and the people he killed were all cops. The same cops who put him away. And in that order, John figured Lisa would be next. It's an emergency. John rushed to Lisa's house. As expected, Lisa has been targeted by Jack. As soon as Lisa arrived at the door, Jack jumped on her. Lisa dodged him, but fell down the stairs. Just as Jack was about to do it, a passerby suddenly rushed up behind him and strangled him, trying to save Lisa. But the passerby was no match for Jack. He was knocked out by an over-the-shoulder drop and dragged to the road. Jack saw that the plan had failed and ran away. John rushed over, but he was too late. By the time they got to Jack's house, he was gone. There was no evidence. But Jack's motive was obvious. Since the police officer could be killed at any time, John immediately issued a wanted notice for Jack. As soon as the wanted notice was issued, someone immediately provided a clue. John immediately led the SWAT team to the hotel where he stayed. When he broke into the hotel, Jack had already run out the window. Jack was so vengeful that he decided to kill the police. But the cop suddenly received a text message and left in a hurry. But he didn't notice Jack's murderous face behind him. Jack followed John all the way to the parking lot and finally blocked him on the roof of the building. But when the man turned around, Jack realized that the person he was following was not John. Jack was beaten and bloodied. He pulled a dagger from his foot and tried to fight back. But he was no match for John. Jack ended up getting what was coming to him. Everyone will just assume that he was killed by the killer. And the case would be closed for good.